Hi everybody, it's Ayla from A Purposeful Wife. I tweet over at A Purposeful Wife. Please follow me on Twitter. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up. Leave me a comment below. I wanted to talk today about feminism, and I apologize for the really bad lighting. I'm kind of hiding out in my room. I've got the door locked. I put a movie on for the kids. I tried to do a video before, but my three-year-old, she loves to be on camera and loves to look at herself, so she kept coming up behind me and looking at herself, but then she was talking over me. So I'm kind of in the refuge of my bedroom and hiding right now to make this video. But I wanted to talk about feminism today because I get attacked online over feminism more than just about any other issue I tweet about, which is actually kind of not surprising and surprising at the same time. But the most often the attacks say that I don't know what feminism is, and they throw the dictionary definition at me. So I decided that one of my videos that I would like to make is about how, yes, I do know what feminism is. I've been in the belly of the beast, as I call it. I was deep in feminism, in the world of feminism, and I chose to leave. I'm a recovering feminist myself, and I thought I'd speak a little bit about my history, why I chose to leave, and the issues that I take with feminism. So I started out, those who know a little bit more about my background from my other videos, I went to a very liberal high school program. I had teachers who were former Black Panther members and things like this. So I never questioned whether or not I was going to be a feminist. I just always was a feminist. When I got into college and I was studying liberal arts, that was when I was more impacted by feminism, when feminism was not just an assumption that I would be a feminist, but that it was, handed to me as this package of this is what you have to believe. And I still remember the first moment that seriously studying feminism came up in my life. I was at a party with some people and a woman started talking about academic feminism, which I wasn't really familiar with. I don't even know that I knew at that point that it existed. I think I knew there was a women's studies program, but I'm not sure at that point exactly how much I remember that I knew. But it was the first time I ever heard anybody academically talk about feminist issues. So I decided, I went to the bookstore the next day and dropped a whole wad of cash on a bunch of feminist books. Naomi Wolf and Eve Ensler. I bought the book that I won't say the name of now because I have reformed my ways, but it was country music without the tree music. Yes. Okay, I did that right. So country music without tree and music. Okay, so you understand the word I'm trying to say. There's a book by that title by a woman named Inga, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Misucio. I'm not sure how she pronounces it. That was one of my favorite books for a long time. But anyways, I got really involved in women's studies, in the women's studies department at my college, in on-campus women's issues. And I performed in the vagina monologues that was held on my campus way back when that was still a new thing. I think the Vagina Monologues book was only 1 or 2 years old at the time, and college campuses had just started doing their own performances. I did Introduction to the Woman Who Loved Vaginas, and I did Reclaiming the C word that I just said that I wouldn't say. And so I kind of feel like a recovering alcoholic trying to describe what my life was like before, but saying like, I don't drink that anymore. I don't say those words anymore. So it's a little hard for me, but I want to be as accurate as possible. So I was in those performances. When I graduated with my undergraduate degree in German and anthropology, I did an undergraduate thesis in anthropology on the spiritual traditions of the Navajo and the Hopi tribes and how that related to women's equality within their governmental structure and their social structure in their tribes. And there is a difference in women's roles, so socially and governmentally, between the Hopi and the Navajo, although their spiritual traditions are almost identical. And what my idea was that I was doing in my thesis was trying to parse out, are there theological differences as far as the way women deities and women within religion are expressed in the Navajo and the Hopi, that can account maybe for some of these societal differences and differences in the way that their leadership and government is structured amongst their tribe. So that was one of my main interests, was how worship of a divine feminine, or lack thereof, was then seen in, culturally reflected, let's say, in the culture that held those beliefs. And I continued that subject matter into my master's degree. But I should say that after I got my my undergraduate degree, I actually went back to get a second graduate degree with a major in Russian and a minor in women's studies. But I got pregnant with my first child, and so I ended up dropping out of that. And then moving up to San Francisco, or actually not to I lived above San Francisco, but moving to the San Francisco Bay Area, and then to go to graduate school when my son was about 1 year old. And I'd actually moved there specifically to attend New College of California, which I'd researched online. And they had the only women's spirituality program. I believe it was the only one at the time. I know that there's a few more now. I'm not sure if New College was the first or just one of the only. But it's a very rare program. When people ask me what my master's degree is in and I say women's spirituality, they always kind of look at me funny, as well they should, and say, I didn't know you could get a master's in that. Well, yes, you can. And so I went there and continued my research into the divine feminine within religious structures, and how that relates to certain aspects of the societies that have those faiths, and as well as a lot of others. So while I was getting my master's degree in the Mission District in San Francisco at New College of California, which I would say is arguably the most liberal institution you could attend academically, I studied under people like Judy Grahn, the famous lesbian poet, Louisa Tish, Starhawk, Vicky Noble, all of these very well-known feminists. And I love these women. I don't mean to disparage them at all. I really enjoyed studying with them, particularly Judy Grahn. I really like her, and I really like them as people. I just disagree now with a lot of what feminism has become. However, I do want to say that most of my professors that I did study with would be considered more second wave feminists, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, so I don't know that any of the people I just listed would even consider themselves third wave feminists, or maybe they would. So I have no idea, and I don't want to speak to that. However, those were the people I studied under, and I took a lot. Feminism in religion and society was a pervasive topic. It came up in every single class, and then I did have classes specifically called that. So, reading works such as Buddhism After Patriarchy and these sorts of things. So those terms that are thrown around now in feminism very much existed back then, and that's what I was studying at the graduate level. So I graduated from that program, and I did my graduate thesis, again looking at religious structures and the societies that live under those religious structures. And I went on, with my life, and was thinking about getting maybe a PhD later. I was pregnant with my second child as I went through my graduate degree program. When I got my degree, my son was a baby, and my older son was a toddler at this point. So I was having children, and I always wanted to be a mom. And one of the reasons that I wanted to get a master's degree in women's spirituality was not only to be able to lead community events centered around the divine feminine, but also because I wanted to be able to write books and articles from home, so that I would have a degree where I could work from home. And that was one of my original intentions. And I looked at authors such as Louisa Tish and Vicky Noble and Judy Grahn, and saw what they were able to do, academically with their work and their books and their writings and their columns. And I thought that maybe I could make a living doing that. Of course, when you take out a lot of money for a graduate degree at a private college, and you major in women's spirituality, you're not going to make enough writing from home for columns and writing your own books in order to pay the bills. And that actually ended up not transpiring. And that's my own fault. I should have majored in something a little more serious, but at the time, that was what I thought I could do. And that's what I thought would happen. And so, okay, so that's where I was with that. But my degree was always, I was always very home focused. The two communities I ended up looking at spiritually in my graduate thesis were the Mormon community and the Amish community. And these are two very conservative religious communities, obviously. And so I was always very fascinated by conservative communities, family-based communities, traditional family structures, motherhood. The sacredness of motherhood was always on my mind and my heart since I was about 4 years old. And it wasn't very long, being especially at the graduate level, studying feminism intently, that I recognized that feminine attributes and feminine qualities were not regarded within feminism, and particularly mothering. I was constantly, how do I say this nicely? I was constantly questioned, sometimes berated, oftentimes dismissed academically because my research focused on feminine issues and issues of motherhood. So stay-at-home motherhood, home birth, breastfeeding, home-based education, and things like this. And I came at those issues saying, hey, these are feminist issues. We want moms to be able to stay home, and if they choose. We want them to be able to love and nurture and have children if they choose. We want to look at these social structures that exist. And one of them that I always thought was extremely patriarchal was abortion, because here you had a woman yielding over her natural, beautiful, feminine power to create life to a man in a white lab coat who was sucking it out for cash and killing her baby, and taking this opportunity that she had to fully express what makes women so unique, and that's our ability to birth children, to grow them within our bodies and give birth to them, and then to feed them with our bodies. I mean, if you think about it, it's amazing that they grow in our bodies, we birth them, and then our bodies make food for them, and we feed them off of our bodies. It's incredible, and I always thought should be naturally something that feminism would be drawn to as an issue to promote women having babies and staying at home with their babies and nurturing those babies, and the unique opportunity that women had as educators to home educate their children and not send them off to what I saw was a very patriarchal structure, this public school system that was dominated by men and was overseen by male administrators and men writing curriculums. And anyway, so that's and to teach them, if we believe that there's this patriarchy and there's this male-centered worldview, why that the government is complicit in, why would we then send our children off to be educated by these people who are then going to educate them in this patriarchy structure? I didn't understand that either. I had a lot of, so when I was talking in classes, when I was giving lectures, when I was doing research, it was always from a motherhood perspective, and being pregnant through most of my graduate studies, of course, helped that. There were definitely people that were receptive to this. Most of my professors absolutely loved some of the work I was doing and saw it as work that needed to be done within feminism, that motherhood and the sacredness of motherhood and women's natural nurturing roles had been so overlooked. Judy Grahn, in fact, was very happy about a lot of the research I did, and she really, really liked it at the time. But I saw that a lot of the younger women and even some of the older women there in the program in their 40s and 50s who were embracing this kind of what was up and coming at the time. Excuse me, I'm gonna shift myself a little bit. The people that were embracing this this idea of what we would call third wave feminism, these ideas that have become really prevalent over the past 5 to 10 years in our modern culture, the intersectionality feminists, excuse me, these sorts were a lot of my colleagues. Not all, but a lot of my colleagues. And I really saw that there was this disconnect, that they didn't want to investigate or even acknowledge woman's natural feminine abilities, motherhood, breastfeeding, giving birth, as these to be feminist issues at all, other than that they shouldn't. Other than the feminist issues surrounding the sacredness of motherhood was that moms should not be mothers. A lot of these women had been mothers and had decided that they had been oppressed or whatever else that they had decided. Some of them not, and I'm not speaking to every student that was there at the time that I was there, but I did get that from a lot of them, a lot of shame that they had been mothers, for the most part, either shame that they'd been stay-at-home mothers or shame that they'd been working mothers and they felt like that hadn't worked out for them and for their family, maybe that they should have spent more time with their children. But then this defensiveness around the fact that they were working mothers, which you see a lot with working women, very, very defensive around that position. And so a lot of my fellow students were quick to dismiss stay-at-home motherhood because they felt guilt over not having been stay-at-home mothers for the most part. And a lot of them saw going back to school and getting their graduate degree after having been mothers as this really freeing feminist thing to do, to kind of remove themselves from their family. And I always was very much in my graduate program as a mother and as part of my family's journey. My husband often brought our son to the college. We would have lunch together. And that is where another thing ended up happening, was that I was constantly accused of keeping my one son more immature than he should be, of basically babying my baby. Which is kind of funny, but this is another thing that came through with the feminism. My son was 2 years old at the time that I was going through my graduate degree program, and we lived 3 hours north of San Francisco. So when I came in for school, it was a really big drive. It started early in the morning. I had to be at class at 9 o'clock, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I used to leave at 4:30, because then, of course, there's parking in San Francisco and walking to get to class and all of that. So I would leave at 4:30, and when my husband and my son would come with me, we would just take my son straight from bed at 4:30 in the morning in his pajamas, and we would put him in the car seat, and he would just go back to sleep, and then we drive into the city. Well, I was criticized for that by feminists because I was holding my son back by keeping him dressed like a baby, quote, dressing my son like a baby, even though he was 2 years old, because he was wearing footy pajamas, of all things. And I couldn't understand that. And of course, I wasn't at the time able to articulate a response to that other than, really? Are you serious? And so I was pegged very early on as being like baby obsessed, as like motherhood obsessed, and that here I had one child already, and frankly wasn't one child enough. I had the audacity to go ahead and have a second child, and global warming and all that, and carbon footprint, yada yada yada. But not only was I going and having another baby shock, but I was keeping my 2-year-old a baby because I wouldn't put him in preschool. I didn't use daycare, and I let him wear footy pajamas, which they make for 2-year-olds. Lots of 2-year-olds wear footy pajamas anyways. And that I let him wear his footy pajamas on the drive into the city when we left at 4:30 in the morning. It was just like bizarre. It was bizarre the way they viewed me and motherhood. And again, not across the board. I didn't get this from like every single person. So I'm making generalizations here, and I'm not, I'm not trying to say that every single person had that attitude. In fact, I had a couple of fellow students who were really sweet and very kind about me being a mother and about my motherhood studies. But in a situation where we often in classes were sharing our research and sharing what we were reading about and what we were writing about, I was often put down for the issues that I was bringing up. Okay, so fast forward a couple of years, I got my graduate degree. I'm sitting at home. I had a wonderful friend of mine send me the book, Fascinating Womanhood. She said, you have to read this. I read it. Woo! What my mind blown, worldview totally turned around. And I started doing research and realized how the things that I had been feeling uncomfortable with about feminism really were going completely off the deep end. And just in the past about 6 years since about 6 years since I've just declared myself not a feminist, it's just gotten even worse. So let me go through some of the things that, now that you know my background and you know how I did study feminism and I'm very well studied in feminism, I'm going to go through a few things that have me rejecting feminism. So first of all, it is very disparaging towards men. And they always say, oh, it's not a man-hating movement, but it is. It really is. There's this thing that we say in anthropology, there's the cultural ideal, and then there's the cultural reality. Well, the cultural ideal behind feminism, the culture of feminism, and what our culture says feminism is that dictionary definition of equality between a man and a woman, which isn't even possible, but that's another subject. But the cultural reality is not that they are wanting to be equal with men. The cultural reality is that they're very degrading to men, to men's instincts that have been placed in them, whether you believe by God or by evolution. Either way, these instincts have served mankind, humankind, for thousands of years. They lead, they protect, they are strong, they provide. They were crucial in development of things like the Enlightenment, developments, medical breakthroughs like penicillin that was given to us by men. And it's because they spend long hours at the office, long hours at the lab, long hours at the quarry, wherever they're at, they work really hard. They've built up all of the Western world. They've built up the industrial society. We have flushable toilets. We have plumbing systems. We have medicine. We have all penicillin, all of these wonderful breakthroughs. We have surgery, and this 99% of it because of what men did. Now, women were supporting these men the whole time, and women, of course, have made contributions both to science and medicine and industry and architecture. I'm not saying they haven't, but our primary role was to support the man so that he could be the leader and go out and build what we have created, which is amazing, what we've created in this world and what we have in this world, in the computers and the technology. And again, the healthcare. I always go back to the healthcare because health is so important. And I think we forget that the surgeries we take for granted, the pain medications we take for granted, things we take for granted like penicillin, which has saved countless lives, these were created by men, smart, intelligent, industrious, hardworking men who went out there and said, there's a problem and I'm going to find a solution. So we need them, and we want them to try to find solutions. We don't want men to give up on the world. There's the men going their own way movement right now, and it breaks my heart. I understand why they're going their own way, but it breaks my heart because I say, no. We don't all feel that way. Not all women feel that way, and we know we need you. We need you so much. We need you to be doing, society will collapse without you, men. Please don't go your own way. Okay, so there's that. There's the issue of rape. When women are honestly brutally raped and attacked, feminists are almost always silent. When you have cultures such as over in the Middle East, where women are are raped, and where there's female genital mutilation, you hear very little from feminists. At least the academic university feminists, this is not an issue they're concerned with. But a woman walking through New York City for 10 hours to get 3 clips of catcalling, that is considered rape. You're rape staring, you're word raping. When women regret having had an intimate encounter with a man, particularly on college campuses, they are allowed to cry rape. And even when the rapist is shown to be innocent, such as the case with Mattress Girl, feminists will still defend that woman. They will still ruin that man's life. They will even make arguments saying that, oh, well, it gives the man character to be falsely accused of rape. It helps strengthen him. I mean, I've actually read this. And so this is the thing I'm talking about. It takes away the real horrible tragedy and brutality of actual rape. It attaches the word rape to everything. Feminism, modern feminism, for the most part, has absolutely no problem with men being falsely accused of rape. And some of them, a vast majority in fact, will consider actions that aren't rape to be rape, not just catcalling, but things like, regretting it the next morning. Or there's that idea that if he lied to you about his job or his position or how much money he has, then that was rape because you didn't really consent to sleeping with that man in particular. You consented to sleeping with somebody that you thought that he was. So they call that rape. They ruin men's lives with this. I've known several men who have been absolutely ruined, even when cleared. And all a woman has to do, I have a friend from childhood, and in high school, his girlfriend accused him of rape, and she never went through with it. As far as the court system, she just spread the rumor around. The rumor was not true. She retracted it about, I would say, maybe 5 to 6 years after graduating high school. But of course, the majority of people didn't hear the retraction. All they think about this man is that he's a rapist, that he raped his girlfriend in high school. And so living in a small town, in a small community, a very close-knit community, that's very difficult for him as far as jobs and opportunity go, because he has this stigma attached to his name. And she said, oh yeah, by the way, he didn't actually rape me. And then she moved away to a different state, and he's still there in that community trying to get by. On to the next subject, the court system. The court system is very biased towards women. If I divorced my husband right now, I would get full custody of our children. I'd probably be awarded our house. My husband at best would maybe get to see his children every other weekend. And all I would have to do is cry sexual assault, verbal violence, something like that. And the court system would probably, if I wanted to, the court system wouldn't allow him to have his children at all. And he would have to, if he wanted to be able to see his children, he would have to spend a lot of money and a lot of resources. And since he would be working and to pay alimony and child support, he probably wouldn't have the time or resources to fight me. And that's true of most marriages. Men right now are being held hostage in marriages where the woman is domineering and abusive emotionally, verbally, and sometimes even physically, and they cannot leave because of their children. They know that they'll lose their children because our court system is biased. Weakness. Feminism makes women weaker. It doesn't celebrate what's strong about us. It doesn't celebrate giving birth without medication. It doesn't celebrate being able to breastfeed for 2, 3, 4 years. I myself have been breastfeeding for 12 years with basically no break. And because I have a baby and I nurse them until I have my next baby, and then I nurse them, and with only a few months off here and there in between, I've been nursing for 12 years. That is strength. That is some natural women's strength right there. And they don't want to celebrate that. They want to only celebrate strength that is defined in male terms, male strength that women try to emulate, which we can't do anyway. And then they make women weak in other areas. So when Christina Hoff Sommers goes to speak at a college, they suddenly women need safe rooms and teddy bears and lollipops, because they're going to be triggered. These safe spaces and this triggering and this, they cannot, absolutely, modern feminists cannot stand the idea that somebody would disagree with them. And that is, academically, that is not rigorous. That is not how academia is supposed to go. You're not supposed to retreat into a safe space anytime somebody disagrees with you. You're supposed to defend your position with facts, and you should be very good at that. Teaching debate and things like that, we don't do that anymore. We don't care. It's all about political correct phrasing. It's all about, just yelling racist or bigot or homophobe or whatever as soon as we don't agree with somebody. So they create weakness, mentally, emotionally, and academically within women, and then try to promote strengths that are not our strengths, such as, muscle mass and physical prowess and strength sexually by, shamelessly going around and having multiple sexual encounters as that being some sort of sign of virility, of female virility and strength, because they're taking a masculine view of strength and imposing that on women. And that, to me, sounds like patriarchy. I mean, if you're talking patriarchy, that's patriarchy right there. Okay, fat shaming. Feminists have been very, very involved in this whole fat shaming, you can't call people fat movement, which is absolutely ridiculous. I'm a huge fan of shame, not unwarranted shame. I'm not going to go and I'm not going to go shame my kids for brushing their teeth wrong or something. That's ridiculous. But there needs to be cultural taboos. Cultural taboos exist cross-culturally in the known world for a reason, because certain things aren't good for us. And being fat is not good for you. Now, does that mean that I should go up and call somebody a fat cow and go oink, oink, oink? No, absolutely not. That's not what I'm talking about. But pointing out that being fat isn't healthy is considered fat shaming now. And Nicole, I can't remember her last name now. She did the fat shaming video on YouTube that was removed. YouTube literally has porn on it. You can see dead bodies on YouTube. You can see people get shot on YouTube. But Nicole Arbor, that was her name, makes a video about being fat is not healthy, and she gets taken down by YouTube. This is the sort of thing. So it's creating these women who think it's okay to be fat. I actually came across a YouTube channel yesterday of tips on how to gain weight. Now, this was not, and this was for women, this was not tips for like people who are underweight, who actually have an underweight problem. And I have some friends like that who are just, they're too skinny. It's not their fault. They have medical conditions, metabolic conditions. They're too skinny. They need to gain weight. This was not what that video was about. It was about gaining weight to have curves and all this. And they meant obesity. They didn't mean curves. There's a difference between a curve, which women, even when we're thin, we naturally have those nice curves, and rolls of fat. And feminism doesn't distinguish between those two, and it needs to, because the rolls of fat are killing you. And so they are encouraging obesity, and they're turning around and telling men, if you're not attracted to this obese woman, then you are hateful and you hate women and you are anti-feminist, you're part of the patriarchy, etc., etc. And it's ridiculous. Men are attracted to slender women. And I'm not talking sticks and bones. I'm not talking about like you can see the rib bones and count their vertebrae. I'm talking about slender women for the most part, because it's healthier. Men are attracted to what's healthy, just as women are attracted to men with broad shoulders and tight bottoms and all of these things that indicate to us health and strength and virility and fertility. And so they're shaming, they're saying you can't shame the woman for being fat. You cannot shame that woman who overeats to the point of being obese. But you can shame the man for not being attracted now to this woman who has rolls of fat coming off of her body. Okay, and you can shame thin women. That's totally acceptable in most contexts within feminism. And the public shaming. staying on the theme of shaming, they will publicly shame people into losing their job. Now, I don't agree. This happens on both sides. It happens more on the leftist, liberal, feminist side. And feminists really love to go with this. But for example, if a feminist were to not like something a woman has said, they will try to get them fired. They'll try to get their husbands fired. There's been multiple cases of that. Now, conservatives also, recently Monica Foy, and I've talked about that in my video about Kim Davis. Monica Foy, I think I'm pronouncing her last name right, Foy, said something horrible on Twitter and was completely shamed, degraded, drugged through the internet mud by conservatives. And I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it at all. I don't agree with what Monica said. I don't agree with the name calling and the degrading attitude that people have. And it's become perfectly fine to take a tweet, a video, whatever you don't like Nicole Arbour, and completely drag people through the mud. So Nicole Arbour, who did the fat shaming video, she lost a gig that she had booked. So they have no problem removing your livelihood from you. And this is cultural fascism. This is the culture at large saying, or not even at large, this isn't even the majority, but these are people within the culture saying, we are going to make it horrible for people to Google your name in the future. We're going to make you look terrible, and we're going to make it virtually impossible for an employer to hire you, particularly if you're an employer who has a website for your business, whether that's a hotel, a school, preschool, anything like this. They can go online and they can ruin you through the review sections, as we saw with the Memories Pizza and other incidences like this. Feminism is really big on that. I've even known cases where feminists have called the police and accused men of abusing women. They weren't abusing because the women were not feminists, and therefore their husbands must be abusing them. It's terrible. So then it's on the man to prove that he's not abusing his own wife just because she's not a feminist. It's ridiculous. It ruins men. Feminism ruins men. We live in an amazing time and place where food is really easy to get, whether you just work the average job and can afford to buy, enough food for yourself, or whether you're on food stamps. Either way, food is amazingly easy to get in respect to historically how difficult it's been for our ancestors. You've got food, housing in America, super, super easy. In fact, even if you're homeless and you're living in a shelter, you're living in your car, you're still doing a lot better than most of our ancestors, and of course a lot better than people living in poverty in other places in the world. So food, shelter is taken care of for men in our culture, and sex now is taken care of with pornography, and the internet is everywhere. And you again don't have to be wealthy to have a track phone and sit near a library even if you're living out of your car or in a box, and you can sit and look at porn all day long. You just have to have a Wi-Fi signal. You should sit next to a McDonald's. The phone costs almost nothing at Walmart. You can get some of them for free through social services. You've got the internet. No matter how poor you are, you have access to 24/7 hardcore pornography. So that takes away men's 3 drives. Sorry, I have a Band-Aid. I cut myself. It's a kid's Band-Aid. So that takes away men's 3 drives: providing food, providing shelter, and obtaining sex with women. It takes away all of those 3 are completely taken care of. So why would men, try to navigate this world of feminism? You add on top of it that women are screeching harpies. They are fat, screeching harpies, telling men how they're, if he compliments her LinkedIn profile picture, she's going to publicly shame him for being part of the patriarchy and for harassment. Why would men ever think of coming anywhere near a modern woman? Why would they want to engage with us at all? It makes no sense. They have everything is provided for them, and we are not worth obtaining anymore. And I've said in another video, you go into the average Walmart or even a grocery store, and women are fat. They don't take care of themselves. They don't even, they wear either very little makeup, or it looks like they look like clown shows. They don't do their hair. It's very hard to find a woman that'll even take basic care of herself. And once you even attain a relationship with this woman, she's going to be a screeching, nagging harpy. You're going to work 8, 9, 10 hours a day. You're going to come home and she is still going to expect you to do the dishes and the cooking and the cleaning and whatever else she decides that you need to do because you're not pulling your weight. And while she sits on the couch. And that has become modern women because of feminism. They think they get to have all of this and all of this privilege, really, of not having to take care of themselves, and they will screech at men to do it. Okay, and taking care of their household selves, I should say, not overall. Okay, we need men to want us. Men built most of the Western world for 2 reasons. Number 1, to prove that they were the strongest man. Number 2, to get chicks. Okay, that's why we have what we have. Okay, that's why I can talk to you in this computer screen right now, and I could live on the other side of the world from you, and you're able to hear and see what I'm saying, is because men had drive, and that was to compete with other men and show that they were the best, most dominant man, either through money or status, and it was to get chicks. And we're not worth getting anymore. Feminism has made us not worth getting. So what is going to drive the average male in our society today to work hard, to be creative and inventive and come up with new things? It's just continuing to go downhill. Sluts. Feminism glorifies sexual promiscuity. Gone are the days when being a virgin was valued and hopefully expected. Now you're expected to have 20, 30, 40 partners before you get married if you're a woman, or otherwise you are just this, immature little thing who doesn't know anything about the world. And of course, becoming even more popular that now once you're married, to not be monogamous in your relationship, so you continue to sleep around. It spreads disease. It's disgusting. It's gross. Men don't want it. Men don't want to fight for the love and attention of an affection of a woman who has slept with 30 other men. It's gross. It's gross. Bottom line. And I'm fine also with slut shaming. Back on the shaming topic. You shouldn't be a slut. It's not healthy for you emotionally or physically, and it's not healthy for society. It doesn't build up strong families. It doesn't build strong culture. Okay. And I kind of touched this on already. It denies the real power of the feminine. And I will give you a really quick example. I'm LDS, so a lot of people love to attack the fact that the LDS church doesn't allow women to have the priesthood, that only men hold the priesthood. And I say, well, and they say, well, that's sexist. I said, well, it's only sexist if you're defining power and control and importance and sacredness through male terms only. If you see the priesthood as the only sacred power within the church, then yes, it seems sexist and not equal. But if you look at those primary teachers in the children's room who are teaching those 3-year-olds to love Jesus, to follow Jesus Christ, if you see those women who are raising the next generation and instilling a love and Christian values into those tiny children week after week after week, if you see that as valuable and strong and just as necessary as the priesthood, because it is, then you wouldn't see the church as being sexist. You would see that my church has different roles for men and women, but that is normal, that is natural, that is good. Women are better at it in general. Men are better at their things in general. So the church is only sexist if you only define power, strength, and importance through the lens of masculinity and completely overlook the value and importance of feminine women. And I often like to say, yes, my prophet of my church is a man, but his entire life he was guided, raised, and taught to follow Christ by women. Women molded this man that is now the prophet, and he could not, and I know he would agree with me on this, he would not be who he was today if it were not for those amazing, nurturing, strong, caring, Christ-like women who guided, nurtured, and directed him his entire life, particularly those early years, those foundational early years. And that is just as valuable as any priesthood holder position. Okay, so that's an example of how it denies real feminine power. It denies what we're good at, our contributions to humanity. Feminism only sees strength as masculinity, masculine strength. When I do my dishes, that is feminine strength. I am nurturing, providing, and caring for my home. That is strength. Society would crumble without it. Without people at home caring, nurturing, feeding the next generation, society would crumble. I have just as important a role as my husband has in the working world. And we need to get back to recognizing that and valuing that. And with all that, my last point is that it's destroying the family unit. Because of all of these things I've listed just now, the denying the real feminine, turning women into sluts, making men not have the drive to build up the world, etc., etc. This is all ruining the strongest thing we have in our culture and our society, which is the home, which is a father and a mother raising in strength, love, kindness, the next generation of human beings who are going to inherit this planet. And we've seen a drastic decline since the 1960s in that. We're going on seeing the third generation now come out post this feminist revolution and feminist attack on the family, and we can see where it has ended up. More violence in our streets, more poverty. We have more children in trouble, drugs. We are not as educated as we used to be. We have 50% almost, of fathers just completely taking off on their family, etc., etc. And then if we don't have strong families, we don't have a society, we don't have a culture, and that's it. So we're going to lose everything because of feminism if we don't turn around. So before I end, I wanted to give a couple of quotes. A lot of people like to say, feminism is about equality, feminism is about equality. So let's address that issue one more time. I'm going to quote Robin Morgan, the Ms. Magazine editor here. She says, "I feel that, quote, man-hating is an honorable and viable political act, that the oppressed have a right to class hatred against the class that is oppressing them." So this is the editor of Ms. Magazine. So you can't tell me this is some random Tumblr girl. These are feminists. These are leading feminists. Let's see. "Rape is nothing more or less than a conscious process of intimidation by which all men keep all women in a state of fear." Susan Brown Miller. Okay. Sharon Stone, famous outspoken feminist in Hollywood. "The more famous and powerful I get, the more power I have to hurt men." Okay. "In patriarchal society, all heterosexual intercourse is rape because women as a group are not strong enough to give meaningful consent." Catherine McKinnon. I don't know what she thinks is meaningful consent, and that's a whole nother video for another day. Enthusiastic consent are the two most not sexy words in the human language. Okay. "Men who are unjustly accused of rape can sometimes gain from the experience." Catherine Cummins. And then Marilyn French says, "All men are rapists, and that's all they are." So there's a couple. You can Google it. They're everywhere. Those kinds of quotes. So I wanted to say that, and I might make a couple spin-off videos addressing some more of the more specific problems I have with feminism. But that's kind of a really long overview of the problems I have with feminism, modern day feminism, the feminist movement, and a little history of my background. I know what feminism is. I've been in the belly of the beast. I reject it. It's time to return to strong values, strong families, strong women, strong mothers, strong fathers, or our society is quite literally doomed. Feminism is killing us. It is killing us. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember to give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Give me a comment below. And follow me over at A Purposeful Wife on Twitter. Thanks so much. Have a great day.